shillings in a bid to help the National Treasury borrow more. This comes as the country explores options to finance the 2021-2022 fiscal budget after being hit by revenue shortfalls largely occasioned by the coronavirus global pandemic. What does this mean? KTN business reporter Brenda Kerubo explains.
As of August 2020, the stock of Kenya's public debt stood at 7.06 trillion shillings. This, together with committed and disbursed debt of 1.35 trillion shillings, translates to a total public debt of 8.41 trillion shillings, which loosely translates to an equivalent of the government being able to build 14 brand new Nairobi expressways. The Public Finance Management Act sets the public debt ceiling at 9 trillion shillings. National Treasury has submitted a proposal to the National Assembly to amend the Public Finance Management Act to create room for more borrowing.
It's a delicate balance. And that's why we say we are not shy from borrowing. For us to continue now upscaling expenditure, growth, employment, and making sure that we work through this challenging time, sitting around is not a solution. That's why we said we are going to borrow concessionally from the World Bank, from IMF, from other multilateral agencies, including even African Development Bank.
Tax collections have continued to plummet due to the reduced economic activity, which has further been worsened by job losses. The interventions measures to give businesses and salaried Kenyan tax breaks further saw the taxman experience a huge revenue shortfall. Collections in the 3 months to September dropped 15% to 317.6 billion shillings. At the same time, in the current financial year, 2020-2021, debt servicing payments for both domestic and external debt amount to 904.7 billion shillings. That is 47% of total government revenue.
Some of all these created a huge gap in our budget. We had to forego 172 billion Kenyan shilling as a result of those measures. Reduction of the VAT, reduction of the income tax, exemptions of payment taxes from anyone earning 24,000 and below, among very many others. We had to have all in this. So that's how we've been struggling.
The government is currently discussing a $2.3 billion lending program with the International Monetary Fund. It is also having talks with the World Bank for the provision of additional budgetary support loan. Brenda Kerubo, KTN News.
Now, as our guests today get ready for the conversation, that is quite a sensitive issue, and of course that's why we want now to get the reactions from the public. Let's take the conversation to the public and get sentiments on just how they are taking this bold proposal to raise the country's debt ceiling. We have our man on the ground, Noah Kipkemboi, to pick views from Wananchi. Over to you now, Noah.
Thank you very much, Brian George. We are right here at City Market. I don't know whether I'll do shopping, but we have, very important things to address. We are not buying meat today. We are looking at the meat of the issue. I had to use that wordplay on matters public debt. And the question is it the right thing? Is it working for us? I'll just remove this cable right here. Thank you very much. So, we want to engage the public to know their take on this particular issue of public debt. Do they think the money that we borrow is well accounted for? At the same time, apart from that, is it being done the right way, and what is the cost to this borrowing? At this particular moment, I'd like to involve this particular gentleman. Sir, if you may just approach right here. What is your name?
My name is Nyango Alvin.
Okay. So the issue of public debt, the government plans to borrow more. We understand these were turbulent times for the economy, and even revenue raising has been difficult. So are they not justified to borrow?
You see, the first thing is that most of us don't understand the effect of this borrowing, and we don't understand what the government is. Assuming the government is a company with a share of around a share capital of 1 million and 1,000 shareholders. This means the net value of each shareholder there is only 1,000. Now, if the company cannot sustain itself within the shareholding, that's why people will go outside to borrow money. But rules have to be set. You borrow to a certain percentage. That's why before our parliament sat down 2 years ago to raise the value of the debt ceiling from the previous 50% of our net present value of the GDP to 9 trillion, which is just a figure. By then, what they did not tell Kenyans is that this 9 trillion was almost 90% of our economy was 10 trillion during then. Now our economy has grown. But instead of working on how to get more funds to fund the government from government's own generation, we have gone out to borrow more. This one has impacted negative effect on our economy. And that's why at the current time, you will hear most of the Kenyans crying. We have no money, we have no money, there's no business. What happens? We have borrowed too much. And
maybe if I cut you short, the issue of, the argument from the government side is during COVID period, we understand the economic situation was difficult. There were those tax breaks issued by the government to help people mitigate COVID-19, and that swept some money away from the Kenya Revenue Authority. Now, is that coming back? The projections are a little bit difficult. So don't you think they're justified too?
No, not at all. Let's start with the COVID funds. How much did we receive from outside as grant for fundings? Number two, how much did we lose as revenues? Because Kenya is a country which the highest we have collected from taxes is only 1.6 trillion. Now, did we lose even a quarter of that during the COVID? The answer is well, no. So, using COVID as an excuse for borrowing more is not necessary. Remember here, we want to borrow amount, we are increasing it from 9 trillion to an amount of 12 trillion as proposed. If that goes through, then it means we are increasing by 3 trillion. What is our budget per year? It is barely 2.7 trillion. So it means we want to fund the whole economy using borrowed funds. What has happened to the collection we usually make? What we should do is not to borrow more. We are inflicting an injury into this country which will take a lot of time to heal up. And this cannot be used, COVID cannot be used as a justification factor to increase our debt ceiling. It cannot be used.
Definitely. And maybe engage some of your colleagues. Gentlemen, if I may have you right there. Young man, just put your mask well so that we put COVID at bay. Solutions, because we've pointed the problem. And most people are not pro-borrowing. What is the way forward now for Treasury to be able to fund, activities of the government?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Michael. I'm an economist by profession from the University of Nairobi. Now, this is, I think, up to the 70th time I'm commenting on this issue of public debt. I've raised it in different platforms, but I must say that before we go to the solutions of the National Treasury and that, first we must separate the public management, the Public Debt Management Authority. It must be separated from the National Treasury. Okay? It must not remain domiciled in the National Treasury because that is one of the biggest problems that we have. Two, we must cease from what we call over-ambitious projects. Let me tell you, a country like Kenya is a country that food-wise, it is still insecure. Where are we going for big infrastructural projects? Why don't we cut our government spending by spending on what is paramount and what is crucial in our economy? There are things which are crucial in our economy. Behind you can see a supermarket which is closed, isn't it? Do you know how long this city market here, which is here, has been out of operation of business and business has gone down? One of the ways that you promote that you can reduce borrowing is by increasing revenue in your country, by opening up your country to a 24-hour economy. Why is the president still closing the country for 24 hours? The threat of COVID-19, other countries are opening. You must weigh the threat of COVID-19 against the impact that is going to leave, economic impact that are going to be left in the country, which are going to last long term. That is number one. Number two, we have the problem of debt sustainability in our country. Can we be able to sustain a debt of 12 trillion? Well, our treasury is collecting up to a revenue of only 1.3 trillion shillings. Surely we are not a country which is understanding any of the economic terms. Three, the people who have been entrusted to run this government, they don't deserve to run it at all. We were with Mwai Kibaki here. These people want to raise our domestic borrowing from what the budget policy statement had estimated from 222 billion to 486. That is more than double. What are we doing in our country? We are not serious. I do not understand who are the advisors of the president, in which school they attended economics, Because we are right now in our country, economically, we're in a recession. But I can assure you, as I've always said, the year 2024, 2025, we are going to go into an economic depression. 3 countries have gone into a depression in the world, and only one has recovered successfully.
Definitely. And I think this is a discussion that we need to continue. But right now, we want to head back to the studio because we have a specialist and address some of these concerns that have been raised here by Wananchi. A lot of economics do not make sense, especially on the decision-making bit of it. Over to you, Brian George.
No, thank you for that. Quite emotive.